Hello guys and welcome back to Most Coasters. Today I'm going to be ranking all of the roller coasters at Six Flags Great America. Let's get to it. So for starters, we're going to start with the bottom 5. All of these coasters I would categorize as mostly in the family category. Some of them for their age and others just because they aren't very tall or fast. Let's start off with 15th. We've got Sprocket Rockets. This is a classic Vekoma Jr. coaster, not much else to talk about. In 14th is the Little Dipper. A good coaster, but also meant for kids. It's a kiddie wooden coaster. Very strong for a kids coaster, though, I will say that. 13th is the Dark Knight. Only reason it's here is because it's got greater theming than Little Dipper, so I felt like it needed some credit for that. In 12th is the Wizard. This is a fantastic family coaster. I wish I could ride this more. I just don't like the seating, and it usually has a fairly long line, but overall really fun ride. Actually has some pretty good terrain usage and definitely recommend for families. And finally, in 11th place is the Demon. While this coaster was obviously originally intended for thrill seekers, these days it's a pretty good coaster to level up for kids, and I think some people believe this coaster is rough. You got to just brace on the corkscrews. That's basically it. The rest of the layout is pretty smooth. Those corkscrews is the only part that it kind of jams your head, so you just got to brace for those. Other than that, it's a pretty smooth ride overall, and I'm a tall guy, so if I'm saying it, then it must be true. In 10th place is the Joker. This is a clone, and so I had to put it pretty low. I don't know. It's a fun ride. I definitely think at times I can definitely enjoy it more than a lot of other coasters. And some parks, it's much higher on the list, but this park has such a strong supporting lineup that this is really at the close to the bottom of that supporting lineup. In 9th place is American Eagle. Some people are diehard fans of this, and I really don't get it. This definitely isn't the strongest wooden coaster at Great America, not even really that close for me. This thing just has really bad pacing. Like, why would you have a turn that slows the train down completely in the middle of the coaster? Really bad pacing. The airtime is, while good, it's kind of janky. It's like, this coaster does go pretty fast and can have really good airtime in some of those hills, but it's a little too rough to enjoy. Like, when you're going that fast, it feels a little out of control, and so for me, that's like more of a negative, when some people, I guess, think that's a positive. I kind of get it, but that's not me. In 8th place is the Flash Vertical Velocity, one of the newest rethemed coasters. This thing is good. It's just a clone of some other coasters, and it's not a very complicated layout. It's just forward and back. Now, it is still pretty thrilling and fun. I would definitely recommend for anybody to try this coaster out over some of the other ones, but still it is pretty basic, and so that's why it is in 8th. In 7th place is Superman Ultimate Flight, another clone. The reason I put this below the next coaster, I'll kind of talk about more, but for this coaster specifically, it is actually a really good coaster for families. This is one of the first coasters I tried when I first visited the park, and I think the best part about this coaster is the flying position that you're in. That's kind of its downfall, is that its layout isn't that great, but I do think for most people that flying position is a really enjoyable way to ride a coaster, and so that forceful pretzel loop is also really fun. But I think the big thing about this is the way that you are doing the coaster, not the actual layout itself, which I find actually pretty weak. In 6th place is Batman the Ride. This was the coaster I was alluding to. It is technically a clone, although it is the original Batman the Ride clone. This coaster is a little better than number 7 for me, just because I think that it is a lot more forceful, and being the original, it has a little bit of terrain with it too. I find this coaster just one of the more enjoyable coasters at this park. People I have gone with to the park who are just like GP enjoy this thing, enjoy the heck out of this thing. It's not too tall, but it still has crazy forces, and I just enjoy Batman the Ride. I think it has a much more unique and enjoyable layout compared to Superman Ultimate Flight, which just kind of has a basic layout with, 2 inversions? Not that complicated. This thing has like 6. That's just off the top of my head, so don't quote me. In number 5 is Viper. I think this is a surprise for a lot of people, including myself. Riding throughout the train, there's definitely some better rows and some worse rows. Like, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the very back, but I do really think this coaster is good. It's one of the few wooden coasters that just has some very good lateral forces, which is surprising to me. That was what surprised me. I have ridden this thing forwards and backwards, and I just think I enjoy this coaster more than the rest of them, to be honest, more than the coasters below this. I don't know why, honestly. It's a pretty basic layout, cyclone layout, but I guess just because of the smoothness, and it does have some really good airtime. That first drop is really good. Those are probably some of the biggest reasons that it is as high as it is. Moving on to number 4, we've got X-Flight. This thing is a really good coaster. I think the biggest flaw is actually the restraints. That's probably what holds it back the most. If you just felt a little more free and it wasn't so tight on your chest, I think it would be a little bit more enjoyable. But as far as this coaster's layout and experience, it has those great near-miss elements. That puts it really high for me because it adds more enjoyment to the ride. It has a very good theming for a Six Flags coaster. If you took away the Takis ads, you wouldn't even know that it's a Six Flags coaster, to be honest. So that also helps, and a lot of the inversions are really good. I really like the layout on this thing. Overall, a very good coaster. Now we're getting to our top 3. These are all very good coasters in very different ways. So with number 3, Max Force, it's about the forces that you get. That launch is very forceful. When you go up into that dog tongue, you get a little bit of, I guess, hang time off of some of those moments. Then the bottom of that dog tongue, when you're coming down, is very forceful. I think I grayed out on that maybe once or twice, especially more towards the back. And then you hit that 60-mile-an-hour inversion. That thing is crazy. And then the final inversion, I think, definitely ruined by the brakes on at the end of it, but I still think it's an enjoyable inversion. I wish this coaster just had an extended layout. I think it would be 5-10 times better and be the standout at this park if it did, but as it stands right now, it's still very good and number 3. So a lot of people switch these, but number 2 for me is going to have to be Raging Bull, and I'll explain why I put these two the way I did, but just for now, Raging Bull is number 2, and I think I love this thing. The reason it's so high is because of that back row first drop. The back row first drop is insane. I mean, the first drop in any row is insane, but just with the little pre-drop, it makes the drop even more insane because you get some speed rolling down that thing. So I definitely try to leave a little room because that first drop is so good. Other than that, the layout is a little weaker than other B&Ms, to be honest, because it has a lot more turns and twisting, which I think is good for a coaster, but I think they just need to focus more on the actual airtime. And there are a few other good moments off the mid-course. I want to say there's at least one other airtime moment that I'm just not thinking of. And then that final turn section at the end is a fun ending to this fantastic coaster. But number 1, a very controversial number 1, is Goliath. Goliath for me is number 1 because despite its very short length, the length it has is incredible. That first drop is also insane. I think I prefer back row on Goliath, that's just my opinion. But overall, the stall, the dive loop, the drop, all amazing. There's a really good airtime moment in there too. I wish that the turnaround at the first turnaround and the last turnaround were something else, some other more interesting element. But as the coaster stands, it is really good. Now, I'm sure you're asking, why did I put this above Raging Bull? And I would say it's because there's more of an upside to this ride than Raging Bull. So I've ridden this ride. I've ridden both coasters in varying conditions, and I can say that the best ride I've had on Goliath, which was with the rain, maybe 2 years ago, that thing was insane. It was running so fast. The rain rides on Goliath are better than any ride I've had on Raging Bull, so I just think Goliath overall has a greater upside, and so I ranked it higher because of that. If you guys have any opinions on your rankings at Six Flags Great America, let me know. What's your favorite coaster? Do you prefer Goliath or Raging Bull? Am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time here on Midwest Coasters. Goodbye.